The meaning of the word Kuleana. There's a couple meanings. Basic meaning of that word that you may hear in conversations with Hawaiians or people familiar with the culture. Basic meaning of the word is responsibility. So your Kuleana would be, if somebody's talking about, speaking kind of local talk, my Kuleana on Wednesday evenings is to give talk story. Okay? We have other people who have different Kuleanas, responsibilities. It's also commonly used to mean a special type of land, segment of land. That was curious. I'll bring this up as part of the culture too. The land in the islands was divided up basically into districts, usually, whenever possible, reaching from the ocean to the mountains, that were called ahupua'a. Now, within the ahupua'a, you would have smaller segments of land that were called ili. You have other segments of land that became a particular person's responsibility or a family's responsibility. They were called kuleana. And then you would have the smallest pieces of land. They were called lo'i, and that means a patch. So sometimes if you hear about a taro patch, in the old days, that was the smallest division of land. Okay? Now, what happened as Hawaii went through its political process and changed the laws and lands were all divided up, was one of the most curious kinds of things happened. There were these pieces of land within these larger tracts of land. So you might have, let's say, 100 acres. And within that 100 acres, you would have one piece of land that had been handed down through generations through one family that might have been someplace in that 100 acres. And it was called a kuleana. Could have any shape. But it had a particular dimension, width and length. Okay? And then the way the law started working, someone at some time made the law that said the kuleana was not fixed to a certain location. So if someone came in who wanted to do a development on that 100 acres and that kuleana was in the way, they could not get rid of it, but they could move it off to one corner. Okay? Or stretch it out and make it very long. As long as they kept the same dimensions as far as total square feet, they could change the shape and move it around all over the place. Weird law, but that's part of Hawaiian cultural remnants. Okay. Yeah.
So do those kuleana lands still last? Like, for instance, on Kauai, we have an activist local named Cheryl Lovell of Taki whose kuleana is to look after the watershed near Kalapaki Bay.
Okay.
So is that like handed down through her family that she considers
That's
her responsibility?
That's hard to say. A kuleana today can be a responsibility that you have accepted from someone else, or it can be something you decide to take on yourself. This is my kuleana. You have declared this to be your responsibility, maybe without anybody else's authority. Okay? So without talking to the person, there's no way to tell whether it's traditional or personal.